In the summer of 1154, workers in the English village of Woolpit pulled 2 children from a deep well. Their skin was green, not diseased pale, green. They spoke a language nobody understood. They refused meat, bread, everything except raw beans. For months, one child's color faded. The other vanished completely. Nobody knows where. Nobody knows why. This is not a legend. It is documented in medieval chronicles. And for 900 years, we have gotten the story completely wrong. The story begins with Ralph of Coggeshall, a Benedictine monk who recorded the accounts of eyewitnesses with the seriousness of a court scribe. Ralph did not write for entertainment. He documented miracles and strange events because his monastery was a repository of truth. What he wrote about the green children was specific, detailed, and impossible to dismiss as gossip. The 2 children arrived in autumn. They were brought to the house of Sir Richard de Caen, a local nobleman. And immediately, everything about them was wrong. They wore clothes made of unfamiliar material. They communicated only through gesture and guttural sounds. Their teeth were unusually small and delicate. Their eyes, according to the record, were bright but alien. Most striking, their skin was undeniably green, a deep, uniform color across their entire bodies. The servants at Sir Richard's manor tried feeding them bread, meat, pottage, cheese. The children vomited or refused every bite. For weeks they ate nothing. Then someone noticed them staring at fresh bean pods. They ate only beans, raw beans, obsessively. Within months, the girl's skin began to lighten. Gradually, over the course of a year, her color faded to normal. She learned English. She learned to eat regular food. She integrated into the household. But the boy remained completely green. He refused to change, refused to learn the language, refused to adapt. And then, without explanation in any surviving record, he disappeared. Not died, not mentioned again, simply gone. This is where the official story ends. This is where the mystery usually begins. But we are about to go deeper. For centuries, scholars have offered explanations. Copper poisoning, they say, could turn skin green. Chlorophyll in the bloodstream, a mass hallucination, a hoax perpetrated by Sir Richard to gain notoriety, an elaborate monastic invention. But none of these theories explain everything. Copper poisoning would not affect both children identically. A hallucination would not produce consistent witness testimony across multiple independent sources. A hoax would have been exposed within a generation, and a monastic invention would contradict Ralph's entire credibility as a scribe. The theories collapse when you examine the evidence. So what really happened? The answer lies in what nobody has looked at closely enough: the boy's escape. In 1154, England was recovering from decades of civil war. The anarchy, a brutal conflict between King Stephen and the Empress Matilda, had only ended 9 years earlier. The roads were dangerous. Forests were thick with outlaws and refugees. Villages were suspicious of strangers. And if you looked different, if you spoke an unknown language, if you could not explain your origins, you were a threat. You were a monster. You were something to be contained, studied, or destroyed. This was the world the green boy found himself in. This was the society he was trapped within. Think about what his captivity actually was. He was kept in a manor house. He was studied. His skin color was noted and remarked upon. He was fed against his will or starved intentionally to see what he would accept. The girl could adapt. She could change her skin color through some mechanism we do not understand, learn the language, become human in the eyes of her captors. But the boy could not, or would not. After months of this, he made a choice. He escaped. And when he escaped, nobody wrote about where he went. Because nobody knew, nobody caught him, nobody saw him again. Here is what we know about 12th century England that the popular theories ignore. Travel records from the period show that unusual-looking individuals frequently moved between villages, often in the company of traveling monks, merchants, or performers. A green-skinned boy would have been conspicuous, yes, but not unprecedented in an age when lepers, pilgrims with visible afflictions, and people with various skin conditions moved along established routes. The Fosse Way, the ancient Roman road, still connected major settlements. A boy who knew how to move quietly, who could live on beans and plants, who had nothing to lose, could have survived. Could have walked south, could have reached the coast. The medieval coastline of Suffolk connected to shipping routes that touched Normandy, Flanders, and beyond. A boy who wanted to disappear could have found passage. Fishing boats leaving at night asked no questions. A monastery in a foreign land might have taken him in without interrogation. Monks were taught charity, and the strange orphan was not uncommon. He could have lived an entire life under an assumed identity, in a place where his skin color meant nothing, where his origin story was never questioned. And if he did, there would be no record. No document would connect him to Woolpit. He would simply be gone, lost to history. But this theory only works if we accept something uncomfortable, that the green children were not aliens, not supernatural beings, not impossibilities. They were human, or human enough to survive in human society if they adapted. The girl proved this was possible. She changed, she survived, she lived. The boy chose differently. He chose freedom over assimilation, and in doing so, he became a ghost, a vanished person, a mystery that would echo through 9 centuries of speculation because nobody wanted to face the simpler truth, that he was just a frightened, unusual child who escaped a society that had no place for him. Now, you might ask, what caused the green skin in the first place? This is where modern science offers possibilities that medieval monks could never have imagined. Hyperbilirubinemia, a genetic condition affecting bile production, can cause greenish skin tones. Certain dietary deficiencies combined with specific genetic markers might produce unusual pigmentation. Some theories suggest they came from an isolated community, perhaps a settlement in a deep forest or hidden valley where intermarriage and unique environmental factors created distinct physical characteristics. They were not supernatural, they were human variations that seemed impossible to people who had never encountered them. What makes the Woolpit case so compelling is that it forces us to confront medieval xenophobia directly. These were not objects of wonder in a detached sense. They were children who inspired fear, suspicion, and hunger for explanation. The girl's gradual lightening of skin tone might not have been biological at all. It might have been the result of being kept indoors, away from whatever environmental factors or sun exposure maintained her pigmentation. Or it might have been psychological. The stress of captivity, the pressure to conform, actually changed her physiology. Stress affects skin color. Fear affects metabolism. A child under intense pressure to assimilate might have transformed herself, consciously or unconsciously, to survive. The boy, meanwhile, refused this transformation. He would not lighten his skin. He would not learn English. He would not eat the food of his captors. He maintained his identity absolutely. And for this refusal, he was eventually imprisoned less by walls than by circumstance, until one moment, he decided that escape was worth any risk. He left. He survived or he did not. We will never know, but his disappearance is not a mystery. It is a statement. It is the act of a person choosing invisibility over the violence of forced assimilation. Ralph of Coggeshall documented the children as a miracle. Later scholars saw them as a hoax or a medical curiosity. But if you read between the lines of his chronicle, you see something else. Documentation of a crime. A society that captured 2 children it did not understand. That confined them. That attempted to change them. That succeeded with one and failed with the other. The boy's disappearance is not evidence of supernatural origin. It is evidence of survival instinct. It is evidence of resistance. It is evidence of a child who preferred to die alone in the forest than to live transformed in captivity. The girl, on the other hand, learned to survive by becoming invisible in a different way. She became normal. She took an English name. She married, according to some accounts, and had children. She lived a life of quiet integration. She was successful by the standards of her time because she was willing to erase herself. This is not a victory. This is a different kind of survival. Both children faced an impossible choice: conform or vanish. The girl conformed. The boy vanished. Neither choice was truly free. This is the story we should have been telling for 900 years. Not a story about aliens or supernatural phenomena, but a story about what happens when societies encounter the genuinely different and respond with fear instead of compassion. The Green Children of Woolpit are not a mystery because their origins are unknowable. They are a mystery because we have consistently refused to see them as victims. We have made them exotic. We have made them impossible. We have made them anything but human. And in doing so, we have hidden the real story. That one of them chose freedom, and we will never know if he found it. So what happened to the green boy? The honest answer is, we do not know. But we can know what probably did not happen. He did not vanish into another dimension. He did not evaporate into thin air. He did not cease to exist. The simplest explanation is usually correct. He ran. He escaped. He walked away from a world that had no use for him. Whether he survived is unknowable. Whether he found a community that accepted him is unknowable. Whether he lived a full life under an assumed identity is unknowable. But his choice to disappear, to refuse assimilation, to reject the world that had captured him, that is knowable. That is real. That is his act of rebellion preserved in the silence of the Chronicle. The Green Children of Woolpit are not a legend. They are not proof of aliens or interdimensional breaches. They are not a hoax or a mass delusion. They are a documented historical event that we have misunderstood for centuries. They are two children who were different, captured, and forced to choose between survival and identity. One chose survival through assimilation. One chose identity through escape. Neither path was safe. Neither path was kind. But their story, when stripped of centuries of speculation and fantasy, becomes something more important than any alien theory. It becomes a mirror. It shows us what we do to people who do not fit. It shows us what we have always done. It shows us what we continue to do. If this story hit you, if it made you reconsider what you thought you knew about the Green Children of Woolpit, if it made you think about the countless other stories throughout history where the unusual, the different, the unexplainable have been victims rather than mysteries, then subscribe. There are more untold stories on this channel. Stories that challenge the official narrative. Stories that reveal what happens when we stop looking for supernatural explanations and start looking at human ones. Stories that matter. Subscribe. And keep watching.